Just to remind you, today's topic is how to grow your brand's blog. We're going to cover a little bit about strategy. We're going to talk about kind of contents to put on your blog, and we're going to talk about how you can promote your blog. Today's speakers are myself, who some of you will know, and I'll introduce you a little bit more, and Phoebe, who's been on some of these blogs before, or has done all the blogs before. But we've got, for the first time, and we're really excited about this, we've got a guest speaker joining us today, and I'm going to let Ed introduce himself a little bit more in a moment. This is exciting for us because we wanted to bring in someone who runs their own blog and has real insight to techniques that you can learn from today. So we'll be, as well as sharing our own thoughts, and I'll be talking about SEO later, really wanted to bring in someone who can share first-hand experience of running a successful blog, a blog that he makes money from. So he's going to have some really good tips for you. So, well, why don't I introduce Ed first of all. So Ed runs West End Wilma. I first came across West End Wilma on Twitter many years ago, and I know it goes back to 2012. And I was always impressed with the humour and the irreverent sort of attitude to theatre, to the theatre sector, and that's the main topic. So Ed, I wonder if you can just explain to people who don't know West End Wilma what your blog is about, and maybe share a quick highlight.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everybody. So West End Wilma started out as under a pseudonym of an old lady who started a blog and ran around the West End, seeing shows and writing about them. And then as time progressed, I realized I couldn't keep it a secret for much longer, because as the blog grew, people wondered why they'd never seen this old lady out at press nights and things. So I got my mum involved and got her to dress up in the wig and the outfit to try and look as similar to the picture that we had, and took her out on the scene. And then eventually it became too difficult for her to pretend that she really knew what she was talking about. So I outed myself, and we became the mother and son theatre blogging duo, where we do things together. And she has all the fun and takes all the credit, and I do all the hard work. That's what we say. So, I mean, highlights, it's been, as you say, 8 years. So there's been a lot of things that have happened. But I think just seeing the blog grow, I think that's probably a highlight for anyone that starts a brand or a blog. We have an annual award show in the West End, and the first one 5 years ago was in the basement of a bar with about 30 people, and none of the people that won actually came because nobody really cared or thought it was of any relevance. And then last year we did it in Café de Paris, which is a huge club in the West End, and there's about 450 people there, and it's really become something that people appreciate and see as something in their calendar. So that's a highlight, just seeing things grow and progress.
Which is great for this topic, so thank you. I hope to hear some more about that and how you've achieved that throughout this blog. It's a 60-minute session, so and we will have question and answers throughout. So we really appreciate it when you ask questions. So maybe we can start off with just using the chat box, so you're familiar, so you feel comfortable writing in the chat box. And if anyone can share with us, what do you want to get out of this session? So use the chat box now and just introduce yourself, say what you want to get out of the session. And also, if you've got your own blog and you want to promote it, why not share that in the chat room as well? So give you a few moments to do that. Hi, Sally. Thanks for shouting out. While I wait for you to share those bits, just to remind you, as I said, I'd love this to be interactive. we've got ideas and things that we want to share with you, but we know a lot of you have expertise and it's great to hear all of that as well. So don't be shy to share your own tips at certain moments. So we've got a few set pieces that we'll deliver, and at the end of each of those, we'll give you a chance to ask a question. But equally, while you're doing that, if you think of something, if you think of a question, or you think of something you want to share, don't be shy, put it in the chat room. We might then just ask some of you to share that and unmute yourself and to explain in person. So look forward to getting your interactions throughout this morning, throughout this session. It's 60 minutes, as I said, and we'll have questions and answers as well at the end. And yeah. So thank you for those bits. We'll start looking through those while we're talking. But I've got one more question for you, and that is, what do you see as the key benefit of a brand blog? So what is it? Why, if you've got a blog, why do you have a blog? If you've been told to have a blog, what's the reason for having that blog? So let's maybe share some of those and start our first sort of discussion before we hand over to Ed to share his things. Okay, so just give you a second just to put that in. So thank you, Sam. You say that we're looking for ways to increase views on our blog and need to ensure that we can get maximum views as they are currently quite low. So I know we're definitely going to be addressing that at this sort of second half of the session today. So I hope we can get some answers out there for you. And Lena, thank you for sharing that you want to grow the visibility of your blog. I'm definitely going to be talking about search engine optimization, so I know that will help, and I know Ed will pick up on some of his tried and tested techniques. Sally, thank you for saying I feel like it's more a human voice perhaps, but I have not quite really done it before properly. So I hope that we can give you some tips today, Sally, to share. Oh, hello again, Bryony. Thank you for coming back. And you've just started writing a blog, so hopefully we can hear a little bit about that as well a bit later on. And we've got Maggie doing a DIY blog. So thank you all for your contributions, and we'll keep an eye on those throughout the session. Phoebe, do you have anything to say on this?
I think it's great to hear kind of that some of you are looking to increase visibility. It's great to improve traffic to your website. It might be your website might be somewhere that you want to promote a product or an experience, but need a more kind of creative or perhaps like Sally said, more personal way to get people there. So yeah, I'd say that's a really big benefit. But yeah. It's great to hear that we're along the right lines with what we're covering today. So should we get started?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Great. Okay, so as you know, we've got Ed here today, and we wanted to do this webinar a little bit differently and ask the kind of questions that we would want to know about growing a brand blog. We split this up into sections, and so the first one is how to create a rough strategy, and having a good strategy in place, whether you're doing a social media presence or whether it's a blog that you're managing, is incredibly important, because you have a plan that's based on data, whether it's yours in terms of what's worked well, what hasn't worked for you before, or what other people are doing, and what's working well for them. And having a good strategy in place can only improve your chances of having success with your blog. And so I've got a few questions that I'm going to ask Ed on how he approaches blog strategy. And so the first is, what would you say the main elements that should be included in a blog strategy?
I think there's a couple of key elements that you need to look at when thinking about your blog strategy. Number one, who are you as a brand? And what is it about your business that makes you stand out from the crowd? I think they're two key things to really think about. And most likely there are going to be 100 other brands out there that are similar to what you do. You know, whether it's a dance school or a cake shop, you know, there's going to be a lot of people out there looking for the same attention as you are. So you have to really ask yourself, how do you stand out from the crowd? How do you avoid being just another one? What do you do that's different? When I started the theatre blog, as I mentioned before, I knew that nobody would be interested in looking at a picture of me, just another, you know, man in his bedroom writing about how much he loves Wicked. So I really tried to decide what my niche could be. So I used the photo of the old lady and, you know, really used it as a chance to empower older people, that you're never too old to do anything, and there's no reason you can't retire and start a blog and live out your dreams. So that was kind of how it all started. And I think you really have to ask yourself, what do you have to say? You know, what do you want to talk about that fits with who you are as a brand? And really, what do you want to achieve? What's your goal at the end? You know, you've created your brand and you've created your blog for a reason. What's the reason you did it? Is it just because you thought you should, or, you know, was there a reason behind the decision to start it? Maybe you wanted to inspire people. Maybe you wanted to have an outlet to express your opinions. Maybe you wanted to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you're just passionate about the topic. Maybe you wanted to be recognized for doing something different or something good. And maybe you saw something in similar brands and similar blogs that was missing. You know, when I started West End Wilma, I wanted to know about the cheapest tickets that you could buy. You know, what was the view like? Were they worth buying? How much was a glass of wine? How much was a program? Were the seats comfortable? Well, those kind of things I couldn't find anywhere else. So I really decided to bring that element to my blog. So once you've got your list of the reasons you're doing what you do, then you can really start to think about your strategy. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you the answers that you need, because everybody's brand and everybody's blog is going to be different, and everybody is going to be looking to get different things out of it. But one thing you're all likely to need to do is to grow your online presence. You know, those things I just mentioned. If you want to inspire people, if you want to make money, if you want to express your opinions, you need an audience to do that too. And so you need to work on growing your online presence. Whatever your goal, growing your online presence is going to be key in achieving your goals. So how do you do that? You engage. Follow other people and other brands that have similar interests to what you have to offer, which you probably all do. And then, this is the bit people normally forget, talk to them. Don't just like their posts or retweet the odd thing every now and then. You need to really build relationships. So, you know, find posts that you can interact with, even if it's saying, oh, that's a really great idea, we did something similar, and here's a link to it, or say, oh, I've never thought about that. So thanks for letting me know. When you actually make a comment, you engage in conversation and you really pique that other person's interest as to, who is this talking to me? Because, you know, you don't look at who's liking your posts, you look at who's actually got something interesting to say.
And how long would you generally create a strategy for, or at least follow your strategy before you go back and kind of revisit it?
I think it varies on, you know, personal preference. So, you know, I make a marketing calendar in kind of Excel. I just kind of, you know, all the dates in the months, and then I kind of plan out 12 months in advance. So, you know, I look at what's going on in my industry. When are all the big award shows? When are all the key events? And then mark those notes down so that when you look at what's coming up in the next 3 months, you have an idea of, oh, maybe I can talk about this. Maybe I can do a blog post talking about award seasons. And then also go through, you know, what's happening, key events in life, you know, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Halloween, you know, all of these key dates that you may not really think about until they happen. And so it's good to have a reminder when you look at your marketing calendar that, oh, actually Halloween is coming up, it's Christmas next month. And then you've got time to plan what kind of blog posts can I do around this theme. So if you've got a dance school, you might be able to plan to get your students dressed up in costume, and then you can write a blog post sharing those pictures. You know, you need to really think about things that are coming up that you can really piggyback onto to write a blog post. It's really about thinking outside of the box. You know, there's no bad ideas when it comes to brainstorming these things. And so just sit in a room or with a piece of paper and, you know, write down the craziest ideas for the kind of things you could write about. Because in the midst of the craziness of the things you write down, there will probably be some really interesting things that you'd never really considered doing before. So, you know, do that and see what sticks. Because, you know, it's not about doing what everybody else does. The worst thing you can do is just copy what you see other people doing, because again, that's not going to make you stand out. It's about working out what you can offer to your readers.
I guess that comes back to what you said about making sure that at the heart of what you're doing and at the heart of your strategy is who you are, and what it is you're trying to achieve with your blog. And in terms of calendar, we try and kind of plan long term, but especially at the moment, we have to make sure that we're adapting. We've been talking a lot about that recently. So checking in kind of, you know, whether it's quarterly or monthly is a great way to make sure that the strategies that we're making are still serving us in the kind of like changing environment that we're working in. Okay, great. And then in terms of what makes a successful blog, what kind of results would you say people should be looking at to kind of determine whether their blog is growing or succeeding?
I mean, again, this varies massively depending on what your goals are and what you want to get out of your blog. But I would say look at your analytics, your website analytics, your blog analytics. You know, you can tell if your readership numbers are going up month by month, or if your social media engagement is going up, and, you know, anything else that you're doing, looking at what's going on behind the scenes, you can really see if it's working or not as to whether the numbers are growing.
Yeah, okay. And I guess this kind of takes us on to the next section that we wanted to kind of tap your brain about, and that is what makes an effective blog post. So once you've developed your strategy, the kind of research that you hopefully have been doing in terms of your analytics, what works well, what doesn't, you should have a better idea of what makes a blog post successful for you, because obviously success is different to everybody. But there are some kind of principles that you can follow or include to improve your chances of having an effective blog post. So we wanted to ask what the key factors are to consider when putting together a blog post.
I think really keep it simple, keep it clear, and keep it interesting. You know, the internet contains so much information these days that you've only got a few seconds after someone clicks on your blog to really grab their attention and make them want to carry on reading. You know, I don't know about everybody else, but I often click on an article and, you know, you scroll to see how long it is. And if it just goes on and on and on, I lose interest and think I haven't got time to read this, nor do I really want to spend 10 minutes reading it. Also paragraphs, you know, when they're this long, it's really difficult to scan and read. So breaking up paragraphs into short sections, or even just, you know, a sentence or two, and then space it out, that really, I think, helps help people read it easily. You know, less really is more in today's world. I would say think about what the key message is that you want to tell people, and then make it clear from the very beginning. You know, I often read articles and think, yeah, what's the point? I've clicked on this because you're telling me that you're going to give me this answer to this question. I don't want to have to read all the way to the end to find out what it is, because I'm not reading the information. I'm just scanning for the answer. But if you actually say in the first paragraph, this is the answer, and then you can explain the context around how you've come to that point, and people will be more likely to read how you came to that decision if they know what the answer is. I think there's a really great quote from Winston Churchill when he's talking about public speaking, which also relates to writing blog posts. And it's, if you've got an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Hit the point once at the beginning, and then make the point again in the middle, and then at the end, make the point and make a real splash about it. So, you know, we don't always pay attention to what people are saying all the time. So people might miss what you're telling them. So if you've got one key point for your blog post, say it more than once. You know, say it at the beginning, and then definitely mention it at the end, you know, to summarize what I'm telling you is this. I think it really helps people understand what your key takeaway is from what you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to say. You know, keep it short, keep it concise. A blog shouldn't be a 10,000 word thesis. It just needs to contain the key information in a simple and easy to digest way. You know, people don't want it all flowery and, you know, lots of words. They just want the key information so they can move on to the next blog that they want to read. And the most important thing about a good blog post is the headline, the subject line, because if you haven't got a good subject line, no one is going to click on your link and come to your blog to read it. So you really need to pique their interest with the heading so that they're interested enough to actually visit the blog. Otherwise, it's irrelevant.
Are you on your way, Peter?
Oh, sorry, Stephen. I think if you could just mute yourself, that'd be fab. Thank you so much.
So yeah, a really good headline is something you want. You don't want to give away all of the information in the headline, because then people don't need to click on it to read the blog post, but you need to give them just enough information to make them want to go and read it. For instance, with my theatre blog, something I've done this week about a show that's coming up, the headline could have been "Sunday at the Musicals concert announced." That is the bones of what the article is. It's true, and it might be exciting if that's something you're really interested in, that brand of Sunday at the Musical shows. But actually it's quite dull, and it doesn't encourage anybody to click on the link and read the article. So instead, you could change it to a headline like "Huge lineup of West End talent announced for Sunday at the Musicals. Click here to find out more." It's much more intriguing because you're giving people some information that there's going to be some interesting people performing, and you're telling them click here to find out more, find out who it is. So a lot more people are going to want to know who is performing at this concert because you've said there's a huge lineup of West End talent. It's much more intriguing, I think. You know, it's the headline really is the most important part of writing a blog post, because it's going to decide at the end of the day whether people read the article or not. So really spend some time thinking about different headlines that are interesting and relevant.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. There's some really kind of useful information there. I think a lot of us, you know, if we're marketing managers, whether it's internal or at an agency, or you run your own blog, sometimes it's useful to take a step back and think about the bigger picture, and kind of refresh yourself on these principles that kind of, you know, we know we should be doing, but it's good to kind of have a refresher. So thank you. We have a couple of moments actually. I don't know if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask about what we've spoken about so far, whether it's specific questions on strategy, building strategy, or writing a blog post. Please feel free to comment in the chat. But if not, we can move on to the next section. So I'll just give you a moment if you would like to ask any questions on what we've covered so far. I think Hans, is your microphone on? Sorry, I think Hans is saying
Yeah, I was on mute.
Oh, great.
I liked the point that Ed made about the title being such a key bit, because if you don't get that right, or if you don't make that enticing enough, then people aren't going to read the rest of the blog. And I guess to me that reminds me of emails, email newsletters, and getting the right subject line, and that's something that I know that we're talking about in a future session. Sally's got a question. Do you have some examples of other really good blogs, please? So I don't know if anyone, I mean, it doesn't have to be Ed or Phoebe or myself. I wonder if anyone else has got any blogs that they feel are worth sharing with the group, that are good examples, that people can maybe subscribe to, start following. It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on, you know, what your interests are. But no, I can't think of any off the top of my head that are good examples of well-created blog posts, apart from West End Wilma, of course.
Yeah.
and Sally apologizes. She does love your blog, Ed, but I'm new even to the reading, and I know Sally is a dance, from the dance sector, so I'm sure there are some good blogs, Sally, on dance, and I'll put on the spot, I can't think of any just at the moment, but I'll definitely share those later, I think, or we'll put them on the blog post when we put this online later.
And I'll tweet out about it and ask, like, after this session. So if you follow West End Wilma on Twitter, some people might be able to give some good examples on there for you, because yeah, dance isn't my forte.
Yeah. And Zoe is, I know Zoe's from the food and beverage industry, or well-being as well. They combine those things. So if anyone's got any tips on there, and I'm sure there must be some really good ones there as well. I know I've come across them when I'm doing research for holidays. Zoe's asking, how often should you post blogs to keep engagement but not saturate or bore people? I think that's a really good question, I think.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends on how interesting things are. You know, if there's a week in theatre where loads of things are happening, and there's a lot to talk about, then there will be more. Sometimes there are weeks, especially right now, there are weeks that go by when I don't really write anything. So I think it's good to have a strategy for maybe once a week, or, you know, every few days, or once a month. You know, it really depends on what your brand is and how much you want your blog to be a part of it. But your blog is a really great way to show people that, you know, there are real people behind this brand. It's not just a computer, it's not just a big machine churning out messages and blog posts. It's a good way to, you know, really be personal and really build that connection with your readers. So I know somebody at the beginning asked about whether you should get personal or not in a blog post, and whether you could write about, you know, cooking recipes on a dance blog. And I think it really depends on what you want to do. But yeah, I definitely think showing who you are as a person, what your interests are, I think there's no harm in doing that at all.
Yeah, so it's kind of quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I wonder whether consistency is, so working out what you can do and trying to keep to a consistency can be important as well, along with quality. I agree, comes first, but once you know what you can do, sort of trying to stick to that, so that there's that expectation, people know when to come back, but then not sort of having sort of the weaker content because you're being forced to. And I wondered also whether, again, it's looking at your stats and seeing where people fall off or start to fall off because you're posting too often, or not having that quality content, that can guide you on how often to post as well, I wonder.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll touch on that in my next section.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No. Just about, you know, in terms of how often to do it, and making sure people know when to expect your newsletter to arrive. You know, if you send out an email newsletter, every Saturday, people will start to know, oh, it's Friday, we'll get the West End Wilma newsletter tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, so people kind of know when things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And Sam is asking, do you think stories blogs about staff are a good idea, or does it depend how interesting they are? We have an idea to sow a series of blogs about the specialist that works in our partner schools. Our audience would be schools mainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think as I've been saying, the more personal you can be, the more you can show who the people are behind the brand, the more people are going to feel like they get to know you. And the more they feel like they get to know you, the more they're going to think about visiting your website or booking your courses, or, you know, whatever it is that you're offering. So I think it's a really good idea.
And I think it's also great to have, and this goes back to your strategizing and planning, when you've got those series of ideas that you can sort of bring out, but also has that variety in it that the human element brings into it. I think that can be really good way of managing your content.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of that'll kind of serve our questions for now. We'll have another opportunity at the end of the webinar for you to ask questions. But for now, Hans, I'll pass over to you for SEO.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is something that Emily put in the chat box about something that you want to touch on as well. So hopefully there's something here that you'll find useful. First of all, for those of you who don't know what SEO is, I'll put a definition up on the screen. So it's the process of improving the quality and the quantity of website traffic to your blog or a website from search engines. And I will probably often refer to search engines as Google. That'll be a slip of the tongue. I mean, all the other search engines out there like Bing and the other ones. But so excuse me if I slip into saying Google when I mean search engines in general. I also want to stress that what I'm going to talk about isn't particularly technical. A lot of this is common sense and things that any of you can do. But there are people who make careers out of this and they get very specialists about it. So it's something that you can explore and learn more about. But I wanted just to focus on some key concepts. One of the concepts is the idea of search engines ranking all of the websites that are out there and giving a score so that they can determine what goes first on when someone types something into a search engine. How do they determine what results come first? Well, they do something called ranking, and one of the things we want to do is try and work out how we can improve the rankings for our blogs. So I'm going to go over some of that with you, and picking up on Ed's idea of taking an idea, explaining it, and then coming back to it. I think if I'm going to take a lesson from Ed on that one, it's the fact that no one thing is going to skyrocket your ranking on your blog, but it's doing a lot of these things consistently over time that will have a cumulative effect, and then eventually a sort of a compound effect to get your search engine ranking higher. So just to keep things simple, I've kind of thought of 4 areas that that we can explore. The first one is researching keywords. So before you write anything, think about the keywords. The second one is composing your blog and what can you do to help search engines when you write your blog. The third one is about linking, the links that are on your blog and linking to your blog. And after all, the internet is all about linking from one page to another. That's the heart of the internet. So are we optimizing that? And I've written code as the last area, but it's really the sort of the technical side behind your blog, the things that your readers don't see that are worth considering. So the first one I said was researching your keywords, so research. Again, there is, you can spend a lot of time on researching keyword, but I want to try and keep this simple. And I think just taking an A4 piece of paper, sitting down before you write your blog post and thinking, what are you going to write your blog post on? And what are some keywords that people might want to type into a search engine? You might not, the first words might be the obvious words, and by all means write those down. But then what you want to do is start to explore your keywords a little bit more and move away from them, maybe stretch them to add other words in there. So for example, if you're writing about your Christmas show, for example, the obvious words are going to be panto, pantomime, Christmas show. But those words are going to be the words that other theatres are going to be competing on. So you're going to find it very hard to appear on the top page, the first page of the results. So that's where you want to start getting a little bit more creative and thinking about things that are unique about your situation, or your or something that's more topical that you can add into those words to make them a little bit more complex. And thinking about, if someone is finding your web page, what solution are you offering to their problem? So start writing those and exploring those sort of things. There are tools out there that can help you. So if you have a Google AdWords account, which is free to set up, and you don't have to spend any money on Google AdWords to have an account, that's got a keyword planner in it. And that will give you information about how popular keywords are, and it will give you other keywords that Google sees as related to that. So you can use tools like that to help you. But as I said, I want to keep it simple first. And I think a lot of intuition will work here. But don't just think of the obvious keywords like that. You can also think of what they call semantic keywords, or related keywords. So for example, if you're writing a blog post on chocolate, you might want to add in sugar, milk, and cocoa solids. And sophisticated search engines like Google will know that a good article on chocolate will probably have some of those keywords in, or this is an indication that this is a well-developed article. So maybe spend a little bit of time, a few moments, writing down some of those keywords. And when you've got all of that, and you've spent some time thinking about the short keywords and the longer phrases, put it to one side. I don't mean forget it, but just put it to a side, have it in your peripheral vision, and then move on to the next stage, which is composing your blog or writing your blog. And here, as Ed said earlier on, and we picked up on earlier on, quality is really important. Originality is really key. Those are things that are easier said than done, but it's always good to have in the back of your mind. Think about your readers and the value that you can give to them through your blog post, and have that in the back of your mind. Now, that not only enhances the experience for your readers and probably leads to more people sharing your blog, it helps search engines as well. They can detect, for example, when similar content appears on different blog posts, and they're more likely to downgrade you for that. But also, if people are sharing your blog posts and they're sharing it by putting links on their own blog posts or their own websites, Google starts to pick up on those links to your websites, and it sees them as votes of confidence. So, and if you manage to get a link from a really well-known website like Wikipedia or BBC News, for example, those sites are already ranked very high by search engines. So that is like a double vote of confidence for the search engine. So you want to try and get those sort of links in as well. I'll talk about links a little bit more, but a bit later. But another key thing to think about when you're writing or composing your blog is whether you can make it evergreen. So by that, I mean, it's great to have topical content. Some people obviously value topical content, but also think about content that can sit on your blog and not go out of date for whatever reason. And we have created blog posts for clients like long-standing client Dance Consortium, where those blog posts have been sitting there, not going out of date for 10, 15 years, and are regularly getting us traffic for those as much as new content. So think about the work that you've put in to write that blog post, and then how long that's been out there, and then the value we're getting from the traffic from that over time. So think if you can make your content evergreen as well. I touched on links earlier on, so that takes me to the next bit. And as I said, the internet is all about links. So thinking about having some kind of link strategy can really benefit your blogs. So it's obvious that other people linking to your blog is going to bring you traffic, human traffic, obviously, just by people clicking on the links and coming to you, but also the votes of confidence and the increased in ranking you can get through search engines. But also remember, and I often see this, people forgetting to include blogs to other posts that they've got on their website. So if you've got related blogs, that things that you've written about in the past that are relevant to the blog posts you're writing at the moment, don't forget to make those links between those posts as well. Again, that's helping search engines understand the themes of your website and the themes of your blog. So those links will definitely help with your search engine ranking. And finally, the third area is to be brave. It feels maybe unintuitive, but do feel brave to have links to other websites. So we're often keen to keep content on our website, but by linking out to other authoritative websites on the topic that you're writing, again, you're helping the search engines understand the themes of your website and what your content is about. If they recognize and rank the other website, they're going to know that your content is on a similar theme. And also, if you've got those links between the two websites, that's also going to strengthen that vote of confidence with the search engines. So those are sort of key things to have in a link strategy. A lot of that may happen naturally over time. You've got control over putting links on your blog post. You've got less control about getting other people to link to you, other than making sure the quality and the quantity is there. But also maybe make a task, make a goal to reach out to one person through your email contacts, through your contacts, and ask them to link to you as well. It can be very time consuming, and I'm not encouraging that we've all got I'm not saying that we've all got the resources to spend a lot of time on that, but maybe if you can just have a goal of reaching out for every blog post to one other website that can maybe link to you, you can start to build up that effect over time. And the last bit I wanted to focus on was what goes on behind the scenes of your blog post. So it's worth knowing that search engines value fast websites and mobile-friendly websites. So check that your websites are mobile-friendly and that they're fast. And there are tools online that can help you with that. I can put a link in the blog post after this. Other things to do are other things that search engines will look at is where you choose to emphasize what you choose to emphasize in your blog post. So the title, the headings, the subheadings, what you put in bold, how you describe the images on your page, how you describe the link text as well. All of those things are ways of indicating to a search engine what you think is important. Now, you should be making those important. That should feel natural to your reader, but it also emphasizes to a search engine that if you are looking at your keyword research that you did at the beginning, you can bring that in here and make sure that those keywords are naturally included in the relevant places. And one more important thing to do with those keywords is not to overuse them on your blog post. So that's why I said put it to a side and don't get obsessed by it, because search engines can tell when you overuse keywords, because they think that you're not giving a natural reading experience. So they would want you to use it in a very natural way. So don't overuse your keywords, having done that work in the beginning. So just to summarize, there's lots of ideas that you can do there, the four areas that I talked about, but it's not one of those things that will improve your search engine ranking. It's the cumulative effect over time by doing these things consistently that will have an effect on your search engine results.
Thank you.
So those were my thoughts. I wondered if anyone else has got any idea that they've known or anything that they have learned that they think will help with search engine optimization. So do feel free to put that in the search box. Ed, is there anything there that you do, or is there anything else differently that you might do with search engine optimization?
I think you've covered everything that I do, but yeah, I definitely would say linking is a great thing to do, and something that I've had to learn over the years, not to be afraid of linking to kind of competitor websites.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to think, oh, I'm not going to link to them, or I'm not going to link to this theatre's booking page because, you know, I get nothing out of it and they should pay me if they want that. but actually the more you link to, the better it will be for your blog post. So, you know, for me, if I get a press release about a UK tour that's happening and I list all of the venues and the dates, I will then link to each one, because then there's like 20 links in my blog post. So it really is something that I've learned. And also, you know, bolding and really thinking about the keywords, especially in that first paragraph. I think that's where they really start to scan. You know, even Google can't be bothered to read a whole blog post. So yeah, like, say the information up front as much as you can.
Thank you. Okay, shall we move on, Phoebe?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we're moving on to the final section of our session today, before we will give you another chance to ask some questions. And beyond formulating your blog posts to get seen on search engines, there are lots of other ways that you can promote your blog and get it seen by more people. So Ed, I wanted to ask you what you think the most effective ways are to promote a blog post.
I mean, I would say the main one for me is social media. Promoting your blog is key if you want to grow your brand, and social media is really a great way to do that. Something that I think is really important to think about is, what are the right social media accounts for you? What are the right social media accounts for your brand? You know, don't just stick with the ones that you're comfortable with. You know, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Twitter, you know, the ones that you've always known and you kind of understand how they work. But, you know, if somebody says Snapchat, you shy away going, I don't know what that is. Like, I don't understand how that works. And, you know, I've tried to learn Snapchat and I still don't understand how it works. But it's really important to look at all of the different ones that are out there and understand what they offer and what they can offer you as a brand. And you can look on YouTube for kind of tutorials of how to use these things. Because if you're, so something that's new at the moment is TikTok, where people post videos, and their market is quite young teenagers. So if you were doing a dance competition for under 16s, then TikTok might be the best social media platform for you to use. But if you're, you know, writing about cooking recipes, that's probably not going to appeal to teenagers. So it's really important to kind of look at, what does Instagram offer? What does Twitter offer? What does, you know, TikTok, Snapchat, what do they all offer? And which ones are going to best suit what you want to get out of your brand? I think that's the main thing. And then another point I would say is, which we've kind of touched on, make friends with similar brands out there. You know, reach out to similar blogs, websites that are similar to your brand, and ask them if they're interested in doing some kind of cross promotion where, you know, they write a blog about something you're doing, and in return you write a blog about something they're doing. You know, because then you're appealing to both sets of readers, which some might be the same, but you might pick up some following from them. Now, a lot of brands won't like to promote their competitors, so you might find some resistance if you ask questions like that to similar brands. But if you can find somebody that does want to work with you, it's a really good way to give each other some promotion. You know, again, it's like looking for your niche and saying, well, you don't offer this in your blog, but I do, so I wonder if that might be interesting for you to tell your readers about. It's not about saying, I want to promote exactly the same things that you are doing, because they'll say no. So is there something that another similar brand doesn't do that you do that they might be interested in working on you with? You know, the more of a relationship you have with your competitors, the more they're not going to fear you, and there's more chance that they're going to work with you and not against you. And then I would say, throw money at your slide. You know, throw money at your blog. There's so many different ways to advertise, from Google adverts to Facebook, promoting Facebook posts, Twitter, Instagram, everyone does advertising. Blogs, like I make money through advertising. If somebody's putting on a show and they want to get it out so people are aware that it's happening and suggest they book tickets, they will pay me to put a banner on my website or to put a banner in my email newsletters. So there's a lot of different ways that you can put some money towards growing your blog. And, I'm not talking about hundreds of pounds or thousands of pounds. Things like Facebook promotions or Instagram promotions, you can just put 10 or 20 pounds in and you get to select exactly who you want to aim it at, the age range, the interests that they have, and it's quite affordable. So I would say all of your social media accounts, look into spending just 10 or 20 pounds on each one, doing some kind of promotion, and then you can look at the results and see which one performs best for you. So for example, I've got kind of 5 times as many Twitter followers as I do Facebook followers. So you would think if I advertised with Twitter, I would get a much better response because I've got 25,000 followers. But actually I find what happens is the Facebook followers are more engaged in conversation with me. So I actually find Facebook advertising works a lot better, even though it's to a smaller number of people. I hope that makes sense. But it's really, it's really important to understand what each one offers and try them. You're not going to know which one works for you until you try it. Don't be afraid to just have a go. A great way I find if I'm going to do a promoted post is running a competition, because for me a competition to win theatre tickets is going to be of a lot more interest to people than just promoting an article that I've written. So it's a really I've lost my words now. This is the most talking I've done for 9 months.
I'm so sorry. I feel really bad.
No, I'm not so used to it. It's been a while since I've spoken to anyone. Yeah, really just go through social media accounts and look into doing some paid advertising for it. It's very, very clear to see what can be done. And then I would also say a newsletter is a great thing to do. Have you got an email mailing list? If you haven't, then you should. Invite your readers to sign up to your email mailing list to be notified when you post news or blog posts, whatever it is that you feel you want to share with them. An email mailing list is a great way to share the information. I touched on earlier, have a day of the week or a day of the month that you send it out on, so people know when to expect it come through. So if you do it on a Saturday, people will start to know, Saturday is when I'm going to get this email newsletter. And, it doesn't matter how big or small your mailing list is, because every single person on that list is on it because they actually want to know what you've got to say. They want to hear from you. So you could send an email to 1,000 people that have no idea who you are, and you may find that just sending it to the 50 people on your mailing list gets better engagement because you already know that they're interested in what you've got to say. And then you can also ask them questions on the sign-up form, name, town they live in, male or female. You don't just need their email address. You can really learn who the people are you're talking to by the questions that you ask when they sign up. So I know that 60% of my email readers are over 60, whereas my Twitter following is predominantly kind of younger people. So it's really interesting to be able to see who is reading your newsletters, who is reading your blog posts, but don't underestimate how powerful a newsletter can be, I would say. And I think that's that.
Fab. It's really interesting and encouraging to hear you talk about the differences in the different social media platforms and how you need to approach each of those differently. Of course, we know this, but it's good to kind of talk through it. And And especially so, you know, like you said, the audiences of those different platforms and, you know, newsletters, all of the different promotional outlets that you have are going to be different. But then it's also a case of understanding the strengths of those different platforms and playing to them, and making sure that you're also communicating in the best possible ways across each of them. So yeah, really kind of useful to hear that from you. And just kind of also thank you for I feel really bad for kind of making you talk through all of these things, but it's been really helpful. So I'll stop talking now and I'll pass over to Hans, because we're coming to the end.
Thank you. I think there were lots of useful tips there. I want to make the most of the last few minutes to let people ask questions if you have questions. So Ed covered so many things there, and I hope all of that was relevant to you and things that you can take away. But if there is something there that you still feel that we haven't answered, that you've sat through an hour and you haven't got the answer to that question, please do share that with us now, because maybe we can capture it. And I'm sure if you're thinking of the question, there'll be other people who will have the same thing on their mind. So really put that into the chat box now. And while you're doing that, if there are any more, if there are definitely no more questions.
Oh no, I have one. But do you
oh great, who's that?
In the chat? Sorry, I've just got my hands full, so I can't type at the moment.
Hey, thank
you. I'm a total novice. I'm a total beginner. I started up my own marketing company whilst on maternity leave, and it just took off. And they're like, "Oh, so do you think you could start a blog for me?" And I'm like, "Sorry, what? What do you mean? What blog?" So this has been super interesting. Thank you, guys. But I was just wondering, is there a particular blog website that you'd recommend? Because there's a few that you can pay for and a few free ones. So yeah, do you guys recommend any particular one for a novice like me?
Do you mean websites to where you can publish your blogs?
Yeah.
Personally, if you want me to start, I use WordPress, which is one of the main ones, and it's very simple. It's very straightforward. I've tried some of the others, and I find if you're a beginner like I was when I started, it's quite self-explanatory as to what you need to do. And you know, these days it's not like it used to be in the old days where you had to know how to code in HTML to publish anything on the internet. It's quite straightforward. You just type in what you want and then press publish, and then you copy the link and share it with people. You also want to look at having kind of service providers and domains. So your domain is like your website address, westendwilma.com. You have to purchase that, and then you have to switch it over with your WordPress. I'm probably telling you things you already know. But then things like, if you want to make sure the blog is secure, you need to purchase an SSL certificate, so that when people visit your website, you'll notice when you visit some websites in the address bar, there's a padlock, and it says HTTPS instead of just HTTP. That shows people that your website is secure, and you know, you aren't just some random person. You know, they've got some trust in it. If you've got that, all those things can be sorted with so I use GoDaddy.com. They are my kind of domain provider, and they can do all of that stuff for you. Again, they're super responsive. They have like chat abilities, something I don't seem to have at the moment, where they can kind of talk you through any problems that you've got setting that up. So I would say WordPress, and then GoDaddy for if you want to be a bit more professional with it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we build our websites in WordPress. WordPress started off as a blogging site, and then has become so sophisticated over the years that it's actually become the biggest content management system platform in the world, eclipsing all the others by a big percentage. So, and it has great SEO capabilities as well. So it's a good starter. Other brands are out there, Wix and Squarespace, I guess, wasn't there not a blogging platform called Blogger? I can't remember now.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
I don't know if that still is. Also, I mentioned GoDaddy. I've just realized they've actually started the kind of WordPress element. So if you wanted to do it all through one company, I believe you can now create your actual blog with them, which might be the easiest way to do it. Because I remember when I changed my website over from the WordPress account to having a specific domain, it was a lot to take on. I really didn't understand anything I had to do. So yeah, that might be a good, other similar websites are, I'm sure, available if you want to Google. I'm not promoting GoDaddy, but that's one I use.
Thank you, Ed. Emily, thank you for your question. Has anyone got any more questions? Do you want to unmute yourself and just ask? Or put it in the chat box. I think in that case, it gives us an opportunity maybe just to talk about some of the other webinars that we're planning in the coming months, which are just coming up on your screen. And the links, if you want to, oh, have I done this? Oh, yes, the link, yeah. Phoebe, do you want to explain?
Yeah, so we've got 4 webinars planned over the coming months, which is exciting. In particular, we are really happy to be involved in the AMA's Arts Marketing Festival, which is taking place on the 1st and the 2nd of December, and it's the AMA is the Arts Marketing Association, so it's basically for arts organisations to learn about and discuss marketing, essentially. So we'll be hosting a session that will be looking at how to pivot your digital marketing in response to change, which a lot of us have been doing recently, and that will be on Tuesday the 1st of December at 3:30. As Hans said, the links will be in the chat if you are interested in finding out more. And then we've also now planned our webinars for the first quarter of 2021. In January, we'll be looking at top tips for newsletter success, which is great. We've spoken about that today. So that kind of feeds on to the next one. In February, we'll be looking at how to use analytics to improve your website performance. Again, all stuff that we've looked at today, but just kind of going into a bit more detail. And then finally in March, we have a session on how to monetize your website. So yeah, lots of useful sessions that we have coming up in the future, and a couple more with a bit more of a website focus.
So thank you, Phoebe. Again, it would be great to hear any takeaways, any sort of top tips that you've picked up today that you might want to implement. It'd be lovely to get that feedback in the chat box if there are some things that stood out for you, or one thing that you'll maybe be able to implement. It'd be great to see that in the chat box. We would, other than that, I'd like to say a really warm thank you to Ed. It was really nice to have someone join us today on the webinar, someone who's got some personal experience that they can share with you. So I hope that was helpful. And just thank you very much, everyone, for spending an hour with us. We really appreciate that. And we look forward to seeing some of you again in future webinars.